I have the privilege and the honor to introduce our guest celebrity, our guest 7 Habits celebrity for today. And it's Denise Dudley. And Denise has 32 years experience in living the 7 Habits. SkillPath was one of the first companies to sell Covey's book. And so she became very familiar with it from the very beginning of the 7 Habits movement. She can tell you more about what SkillPath is if you're not aware and things, but it's a pretty big deal. Most of her professional 7 Habits experience has been in the business consulting training industry. And currently she's a behavioral psychologist, professional trainer, business coach, and author. And I got to say, you know, kind of one of my favorite 7 Habits celebrities. So Denise, welcome to the class tonight.
Oh, thank you so much. And thanks everybody for having me. I'm so impressed that you're studying, all of you are studying the 7 Habits, because it's just amazing stuff, in my opinion, truly.
Yeah. So Denise, you had a, kind of a long and glorious, well, I shouldn't say long career, it's not, but you had a very glorious career. And now you're kind of in that giving back phase a little bit of your life, but could you tell us about kind of like what you're currently up to?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, in fact, of course, we could talk about pre-COVID, COVID, maybe post-COVID, because those things have really changed. But let's just pretend in an ideal world when COVID didn't exist, I am predominantly on the road quite a bit as a professional speaker, doing a lot of keynotes, a lot of training, also a lot of consulting to businesses, other universities, not just Cal Poly. And I work mostly in the field of communication, relationship building, leadership stuff, leadership and management. And then, of course, at university campuses, I've been doing a lot of stuff with career readiness, including in Orfalea College of Business for Amy and for Chelsea Kidwell, who's no longer there, but I used to work in her classes. And so that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm also writing. In fact, Sean Covey, who is Stephen Covey's son, one of the 2 sons, just endorsed my most recent book. So I know the Covey people really well, and we'll get to that part of my story. But I have a more unusual association with the 7 Habits than probably any of your other. Wow, I even unplugged the phone. Isn't that crazy? I literally unplugged the phone and it's ringing. I have no idea. It's literally unplugged. So go figure. Okay. Anyway, sorry about that, everybody. At any rate, I have a more unusual association with the Covey people in that I know them quite well. So we'll get to that part of my story in a while.
So maybe Denise, you could tell us, start us out on that 7 Habits journey. And your education and career and behavioral psychologists, like who does that kind of stuff?
Who would do that? Well, actually, I love psychology, and actually I'm a clinical psychologist with a behavioral emphasis. And so sometimes I think about calling myself a clinical psychologist, but then everybody thinks I sit around and work with clients or patients all day, which I have done in my past. But for the most part now, I've moved over into a more behavioral realm where I work more with people. I guess we might call it coaching, but not life coaching. We're talking about coaching, management coaching, career coaching, also executive coaching, which I'm starting to do a little bit more of right now. So to go backward, my official training is in clinical psychology, and I have a PhD in clinical psychology, and I also did postdoctoral work at Stanford in 2 specific areas as a behavioral researcher. I worked actually developing the protocol that's used to this very day for treating agoraphobia and really all of the other phobias, because they all actually behave very similarly. So I worked at Stanford in the behavioral research department, working with agoraphobics and basically behaviorally helping people to overcome all types of phobias. So I did all that. It's a hard career path to describe, but while I was in graduate school, I actually took a job at a psychiatric hospital just because I needed to work and earn money and pay for school and all those things. I later actually became a psychiatric aide in that same hospital, and then I became a trainer, just a trainer in that hospital. I kept working now toward my PhD, and eventually I became the clinical director of the entire corporation of psychiatric hospitals, 18 hospitals, all up and down California, from Eureka and Redding, most northward, and down to Pasadena, I guess Pasadena was the one farthest south, and all points in between. So I was running 18 hospitals, and I was also the director of training because I have licenses to provide basically continuing education to medical professionals.
Yeah.
So I was starting to do a lot of training, a lot of training with
so Denise, that's kind of interesting to me, because I think, when I think of like leadership styles, I always sort of felt like I had a teaching style, of leadership, right? So the people that were working for me, I said, okay, I'm gonna teach you or coach you as an employee. Was that a connection for you, or at that sort of big level? I don't even know if that translates well.
Oh, it does, yes. And I would say that there were a couple things influencing me. One is my personality, for sure. I mean, I just have a certain way of being and doing. And luckily, long before the 7 Habits came around, I really was a believer in collaboration, collaborative stuff. How can we work together? How can I give you all the credit if it's what it takes to make the team work well? So definitely in that, when I became clinical director, it was a lot of just how I tended to do things that I received this position. So then I was teaching in hospitals all over the place.
Right.
And I was also becoming a keynote speaker for basically mental health conferences and things. And so then I believe I probably got scouted. I don't know where this thing happened, but I was doing big audiences. We'll say 1,200, 1,500 people twice a year in LA and San Francisco for mental health conferences and things. So there was an organization I was speaking for a lot. And I got invited to leave that industry and become a professional speaker on the road, doing it every day. And I love speaking, and I love audiences, and I love big audiences. I'm one of those people where I've taught many, many trainers to be trainers, but the thing I almost can't teach is how to overcome stage fright. I've never had it. I just love being out there, and it's fun to me. So I'm trying to make this a little shorter so we can get on to 7 Habits, but I left my clinical director position and I decided to become a professional trainer, and I was on the road, and it's very interesting work. You are in a different city every day, on an airplane every night, 5 days a week. So, and big audiences, and it was fun and I loved it. And then I got invited to come to the inside of the company I was working for as a trainer, and I became their vice president of faculty, curriculum, and basically products, meaning books, tapes, those sorts of things that seminar companies sell. Then all hell broke loose in the company I had joined. Joining that company for the inside meant that I moved from San Francisco, my house with my dog, perfect life, to Kansas City, where it's cold in the winter and humid in the summer. And then I was in the middle of what was a civil war in the company I had joined. And I wasn't in it, I was just peripherally involved. Make a long story short, got out of there, literally went across the street from where that company was located, and with a partner founded SkillPath Seminars. We founded SkillPath Seminars and grew it to become literally the world's largest training organization. 18,000 seminars a year. And at this point, we've done over 12 million people. We've actually trained more than 12 million people. So if you think about 12 million people, that's bigger than any city in the United States. Yeah. So that's how I got where I went. Then I sold SkillPath, actually. Don't own it any longer. I still consult with it. I'm still its mom. So I feel like I'm the mom of that company. And my employees, my former employees, are truly my friends. I am in touch with them all the time. And so then now here I am back in California, where I love being. And I've gone back to a lot of speaking and writing on my own, as well as supporting SkillPath seminars. So that's my career path in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's amazing. And I'm just sort of tickled that you're able to sort of be with us and just sort of give your time like this.
Oh, my pleasure. I love this.
To myself and these students. But so now we need to sort of circle back to like 7 Habits, right? So where were you first exposed to 7 Habits? Was it while you were in sort of the SkillPath seminar building mode type thing?
So we founded SkillPath in 1989. Which interestingly enough is the same year. So we founded SkillPath in April of 1989. In August of 1989, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People was published. So it was published in the beginning, if I remember right, it was like a personal, it wasn't like a big publishing company. I think it was self-published.
Hmm.
So we knew it's funny how things all are interrelated in ways that you never see coming. But so 7 Habits of Highly Effective People had come out, but we already knew Stephen Covey because he originally had a company that was founded in about, I don't know, 85 or 84 that he called Stephen Covey and Associates or something like that. And then he converted that to what he called Covey Leadership Center, I believe. So it was called Covey Leadership Center. So they were doing a lot of more consulting more than training. And so so SkillPath and Covey really did have what would be considered a symbiotic relationship. They didn't really do training on the level that we did it, or that we still do it. And we did consulting, but we didn't specialize in that. So we were able to, in a sense, toss each other customers, basically.
Right.
So then Covey comes out with the book, 7 Habits. Great book. And SkillPath, because we also sell product at the back of the room in seminars, decided to carry his book. So we actually were, as I mentioned, or you mentioned, and I mentioned in the little bio I sent you, we were one of the first organizations to actually cover that book in our seminars and to carry it in the back of the room sales and in our catalog. So we got to know that book very well. And we were about to get to know it a lot better because at that time, Covey did not do their own seminars. They were not a seminar company. So we became the seminar company to deliver the content of the 7 Habits program. And subsequently, we did the First Things First program for them. So we became I guess we'll call it the vehicle by which the Covey people put forth their information in a means other than book form.
Right.
So that's what happened. And to put on a seminar, like we write the brochures, we write the workbook, we train the trainers. So anytime you have to actually go that deeply into any topic, you have to know it. And so I definitely became very familiar with the 7 Habits.
Well, so in doing that though, is it, the thing that I sort of think is that the people that sort of come to the 7 Habits and really sort of integrate it into their lives and go through all the work of actually teaching it or training it, there's something about that resonates. And maybe it's because there's something there that was, it was, for me, I feel like it was before the 7 Habits. I had sort of learned all this stuff in Sunday school or, somewhere in my upbringing. And it was almost like coming home a little bit, for me when I learned it, in my 30s or whenever I started picking it up. Was that sort of, did it resonate for you when you sort of saw this stuff?
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, there are several of the habits that I like as if I did this, but there were things I was already saying and believing in my life that matched up directly with what and I'm hoping that all of you out there who are listening, all of you lovely students might have, even though you're younger than Eric and I are, by only a few years, of course, but even though you're younger than us, I would assume that as you read the 7 Habits, that at some point you were going, yeah, I already thought of that, or that just reinforces something that I have already come to believe. And that certainly happened to me when I came across the 7 Habits. And by the way, just as a quick little, I don't know how much you got into the history of the 7 Habits, but it's pretty interesting. So, Stephen Covey, who has passed away, the company is now run by Stephen M.R. Covey, who's one of his sons. Stephen Covey was a good Mormon man, 9 children, 4 boys and 5 girls, I believe. And you don't really hear anything about the girls and they're there. And of the 4 boys, 2 of them are out there doing stuff. One of them is Stephen M.R., who runs Covey now. And then Sean Covey, who runs kind of his own separate company that focuses on young people and developing young people, but well within the 7 Habits protocol, we'll say. But you saying that it kind of was stuff you learned in Sunday school. Well, so if you go way, way back in Covey's history, he wrote a book that was called, oh man, I actually wrote it down because I was wanting to remember what it was before I talked to you all. It's called something like The Spiritual Proposition for Human Behavior or something. He wrote it in 1970. And it was a Mormon book, very much LDS doctrine. And it was a real precursor to the 7 Habits, which was then secularized and taken to the business leadership
Right.
outside world.
Right.
So a lot of those principles really are basically Mormon LDS principles.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, a lot of them are how to be a good person, really, aren't they? Like
Right.
remembering to seek first to understand, to create a win-win and not a win-lose. Those things are like really good principles, no matter what religion you came from. I assume
Yeah.
all religions would put forth those sorts of ideals.
Right. That's
So
true.
yeah, but yeah,
Well,
there were several things like that. The other thing that I was already doing sort of was that whole thing, you know, the quadrants of the
yeah.
urgent versus, well, so that's not originally Covey. Apparently it's attributed to Eisenhower, like former
Hmm.
President Eisenhower, way before any of us in this
Okay.
chat room were born. But Eisenhower apparently came up with that. And then Covey was the person who really developed it
Yeah.
and flesh it out. But I was already kind of living that way, knowing that there is a difference between important and urgent. I'd kind of figured that one out before the book came out.
Well, you know, Covey was a great popularizer, right?
Yes.
And he packaged it well, and
Yeah.
you know, talked about how these things fit together, and I appreciate that
Yeah.
about the 7 Habits also.
You
I
bet.
wanna- yeah,
Absolutely.
I want to encourage our students. You know, if you got a question for Denise, you know, please type in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll go ahead and recognize you and kind of get into this conversation a little bit. But you know, you talk about a world of wisdom, you know, here on your screen with us now. Denise has got a lot of wisdom and experience that you can benefit from. So Denise, like, do you have a 7 Habits daily practice, or a practice that you apply in your current job or your current mode of living?
Yeah, I would say that I think partially because I have been with it for so long, with the 7 Habits, and I believe in them so much. And I do think you just said something true, Eric. And I think that's that Covey was able to package these in such a beautiful way that they're accessible to us, that they make sense. His examples are good. He makes such a great case for living the way he purports. And so I think that's one of his greatest gifts, is just that he was able to put it all together. He was also a nice man, by the way. I knew him, and he was not very taught. When you know, if you watch films of him, he's a great dynamic speaker, a lot quieter when you meet him. A big man, very, very big man, tall, and you know, had shaved his head, and he had a big head. And he could have been imposing, but he was very kind, actually, very, very kind. But anyway, back to your question, I think because they're so integrated, and I've lived with them for so long, that it's almost as if the 7 Habits have been subsumed underneath the way I operate on a daily basis, and yet I can call forth and know that I'm doing things very directly related to a 7 Habit, such as, you know, the seek first to understand. Well, I'm a psychologist, and so we are, I'm going to say, pretty good at listening empathically, at trying to put yourself in the position of the other person. Those things I was formally trained in, but I have certainly always seen the benefit of it, to just being a listener, an empathic listener, and the idea of making sure that, you know, therapists are also taught something called paraphrasing, where you talk to me for a while and I paraphrase back what you've been saying to me. Well, that takes a long time to become a good one. It's something we practice a lot, but paraphrasing, when done really well, says back to the person in a very short sentence exactly what they're experiencing without adding to or subtracting from their actual experience. And that is such important stuff. Before you ever are going to agree with someone or disagree with them or add to it your experience, making sure that you can verify that you have listened and understood and heard where they are. Such an important skill to have. And that's his seek first to understand and then to be understood. It's
and even, you know, certainly beyond even the realm of clinical psychologists, certainly that's like bread and butter for you guys. But you know, as a business executive, being able to really, you know, get the real information and the thoughts of your employees, you know, in sales situations, it sort of spreads out over all kinds of disciplines in the business world. You know,
absolutely,
kind of
absolutely, it does, and truly, It works, and in personal relationships, by the way. I teach a particular class on personal relationships about how to untangle yourself from difficult negative emotions that might occur in your relationship. Now, that could be with your friend, your sweetheart, your neighbor, whomever. But one of the things I talk about is that before you even open your mouth to agree, not agree, apologize, just slow it down, listen to them, seek first to understand, and then paraphrase back what you think the problem is before you even go to solve it. Because upset people, angry people need to have a sense of completion and need to have a sense of being understood.
Yeah.
So this is important stuff in every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
So, just so my students know, I'm not going to get out of here until at least I have at least 3 student questions. Otherwise, I'm going to feel incomplete. I'm going to feel like I haven't been heard. And
Yeah.
no, it's.
Plus, I love questions. You can ask me
Oh,
anything.
I know. Yeah. And Denise, your case. Have you met the new dean at Cal Poly? You're still involved with the advisory board and things?
Absolutely. I'm proud to say that he and I have hung out, even like hung out, and I like this guy a lot.
Yeah.
He's a good one. He's genuine. He's committed. I just like him so much. How does everybody else feel? Everybody liking the new dean?
Well, yeah, we haven't gotten in an argument yet.
Oh, good.
So let's see. So Chris has a question. Chris, help us out.
Please.
Oh, I said in the chat, I said, what is the habit you need them to work on the most? Because I know you're really familiar with all the 7 habits. What would you say, what's one that, you not necessarily struggle, but that you could work on more than the others?
Oh, thank you for that. Wow, that's a really personal one. Wow, that's good. I like that. No, I'm very excited to think about this. I would say, man, I'm thinking about all the habits right now. So, okay, this is something. Yeah, okay, this would be it. So when we talk about win-win or win-lose or lose-win or win or whatever the other ones are. So,
whatever the other
so
ones are.
I would tend to say that in my life, even currently, and I teach assertiveness training. So this is not good. This is not a good report. I actually teach people how to be assertive, but I would say that I fall into the lose-win more than I should, because I defer a lot to other people. Now, this is mostly in personal relationships, not at work. I'm a hard ass when it comes to work. I ran a very, very big company, so I know how to do what I need to do there. But with friendships, a lot of times I really am a little more passive. I'm like, I don't care what movie you choose the movie. Oh, I don't care what restaurant you choose it. And sometimes I really did want pizza. I did want pizza, and I just don't say it. So I would say that the one I need to work on the most is to think of a win-win and not just defer and go to lose-win. I tend to just shut down and say, you choose. So thank you for that question, Chris. It's making me think I need to work on my assertiveness, isn't it?
Well, I think, and that's, I think one of the things that, because this is, real fresh for us, and we have just been sort of talking about it over the last few weeks, is that one of those categories you didn't sort of mention is the win-win or no deal.
Or no deal, right? Exactly.
The no deal is the assertiveness part, right? That's where you're showing your strength. I'm not going to make a deal unless, you tell me what your win is, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Or I get my win sort of, compared up there. So.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's where I would say I need more personal improvement. I would say that I'm pretty empathic. I love synergy. I love collaborating, and I also love to learn. So my sharpen the saw is, I'd say pretty much in order.
But it makes me think, based on what you said too, and knowing that, you're very nice, you're a nice person too, and an intelligent person. I think sometimes, having some sort of understanding of what the stakes are when you're having a discussion with somebody, and, do I really need to be right this time? I'm right most of the time, and I know I'm right. It's okay. I don't need to have it damage this relationship, maybe, right? Yeah. And if you have a chance to make a deposit by letting somebody pick the pick the non-pizza or whatever. You know,
Yes.
sometimes that can be a good thing too, right?
Absolutely, Eric. That's a really good way to reframe it. That you know, honestly, obviously, if we're getting Italian food and I wanted Chinese food, it's not going to be the end of the world.
Yeah,
And
really.
if
Why do I
really-
need to win this one, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Figure out what's important.
Okay. Well, Denise, we've kind of hit about the sort of time mark that we're going for, and I appreciate your being here and sharing your wisdom, and just to let people know that you're around, you know, you're occasionally around campus, and if they run into you and see you, to say hi and say hello.
Please. Yeah.
But maybe before we let you go, if you had one piece of advice for students that are kind of just starting out on their 7 habits journey, what piece of advice would you give them?
Okay, so this is something that I think, and it's really dangerous to be the last speaker, because I would never want to basically be in conflict with something anyone else said, including Eric, your leader. So if for some reason I'm about to be in conflict, then just ignore what I'm saying, okay, and go with whatever anyone else has said, because I'm way into lose-win, right? So there you go. So I will not win this one. I don't need to. But this is something I've thought about for a while. We batched the first 3 habits into the moving from dependence to independence. We batched the next 3 from independence to interdependence, and the last one is just basically self-development. So we get that. So I would say my advice to you all would be to not get too hung up on where each habit is in those particular categories. In other words, I think in certain ways, Covey was clever, and he figured out a way to help us to remember these 3, the next 3, rather than having to remember 7, you remember 3, you remember 3, you remember 1. So that's a very smart way to do it. But I would also say that if you wanted to get into a big argument or a big analysis, you could sometimes move one of those into another. You could make a case for certain things being in other categories. And so I suggest that nobody get too hung up on where you are in the 7 habits, or whether you must do this before you do that, or whether this really works there, it works there, and not get hung up in that, but just choose the ones that resonate with you, the ones where you say, wow, I really, really want to be better at putting first things first. I really want to be better at being proactive rather than reactive and letting everything just, you know, come down on me without me being in control. So I'd say don't worry too hard about the actual academic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and this only occurs here and that number comes there, but just relax with it and absorb it as a body of information that's so usable every single day. But you might use one thing today and another thing the next day, and you might not think about one of those things for 3 months, and you'll be fine. You'll still be on the path. That's my best advice to you.
All right. Well, Denise, thank you so much once again. You're, like I said, you're one of my favorite 7 Habits celebrities, and I appreciate your coming here and being with us. To say goodbye, if you want to switch your view over to gallery view, our little tradition here is to wave goodbye. So if everybody can go ahead and turn on your video so that Denise can see that you guys were actually paying attention to what she was saying. We appreciate you being here, Denise. Thanks a lot.
Oh, look at this. Oh, you guys just made me all so happy. I'm really happy. I miss you all. I wish I could be with you. I really do.
All right. Well, we'll have to get you in person next time. Okay.
I hope so. Well,
All right.
please say hi to me if you see me on campus. So,
All right.
all right. Okay.
All right. Take care, Denise.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.